What is up, my little pretties? It's your mistress, the Queen of Lions here, and today we are going to do another episode of Shadows and Pretties. Now, this is episode 17. Now, on my community tab poll post that I made like a while ago, I asked what would you guys like to see for the next episode since I'm gonna have it out today, which is Thursday. I asked, would you guys like to see me talk about the Fox and the Hound? Or would you like me to talk about Mulan? So the most votes that a lot of people got is the Fox and the Hound. Now, of course, the Fox and the Hound is based on the novel by Daniel P. Mannix, which I will be talking about the novel too. Just to warn you that the novel is quite disturbing and very dark compared to the Disney movie of the Fox and the Hound we got today. But the production of the Fox and the Hound started in 1977. That's when Disney started making other movies in the time. The Fox and the Hound was slowly starting to be developed, which be remarked as the last involvement remaining the members of the Disney Nine Old Men. Of course, this was just going to be the following retirement of old animators of Don Bluth and his team. So, basically, what we're going to say is that it was released in theaters on July 10th, 1981. Now, I'm sure my dad might have saw this because he grew up he was born in the 50s, and my mom grew up in the 60s. Well, she was born in the 60s, so she might remember seeing this movie in theaters, and I think my dad did as well. However, this was actually be one of the most famous movies that came out, although it was re-released to theaters in March 25th of 1988. Of course, there is a video direct-to-movie sequel, which is a midquel to the first Fox and the Hound movie. It was unnecessary, which is the Fox and the Hound 2, but I'm going to say right now the only reason why I liked that was because Patrick Swayze was in the movie along with Reba McEntire. Well, I'm not going to talk about the sequel too much because this is mainly regarding about the first one. I'm talking about the Disney movie and the actual story with the novel, which is very different. Now, before I get started, I would like to say that there was a lot of great actors in there, like Pat Bertram, who was the chief in the movie, but he also voices the Sheriff of Nottingham in the Robin Hood movie, which I did make a Shadows and Pretties podcast episode regarding that, so if you want to go check it out, feel free to. And what I really do like about this story is that they had Paul Winchell, who plays the woodpecker, who has Tigger's voice in it, and of course, we have Jack Albertson. This to let you guys know that this was the last film Jack Albertson did before he passed away. He was also known as well, you probably, if you guys seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the Gene Wilder one, you'll remember that Jack Albertson was Charlie's Charlie's grandfather. So that's just something I would like to point out. This was his last film before he died. So let me get started with the Disney movie just to review it, just to refresh your memories for those who haven't seen the movie in a very long time, and let's begin. So a young red fox named Todd is an orphan, as his mother was trying to protect him from the hunters, but she ends up getting killed, which you don't see it, but you do hear what's happening. So Big Mama, who is the owl, and Dinky the finch, and Boomer the woodpecker arranged to be adopted by a kindly farmer named Will Tweed. Of course, Tweed names him Todd because she reminds her of a toddler, while meanwhile her neighbor, a hunter named Amos Slade, brings home a young hound puppy named Copper, introduces him to his hunting dog Chief, as Chief was getting old. So Todd and Copper meet and become playmates while playing around, and they want to remain friends forever. This is very different compared to the novel, which I will be explaining more about the novel, but I'm just going to say right now that Disney actually did a really good job on adapting this movie, and I'm really glad we do have it, as it's a really good movie. I'm going to say, when I watched this as a kid, I ended up realizing that this was actually a really good movie. It used to be one of my favorites of Disney movies. I'm sure a lot of people have watched this in VHS, which I have. Used to have it on VHS, but I have it on DVD now, so it's kind of happy for me to have it now. Okay. Now, basically, Slade grows frustrated at Copper for wandering off to play, and of course places him on the leash. While playing with Copper outside his doghouse one day, Todd ends up wakening Chief, and of course Slade and Chief chase Todd until Will Tweed stopped them. Of course, Slade threatens to kill Todd if he trespasses on his farm again. And of course, that's when Will Tweed is not happy for Amos's antics. So when hunting season comes, Slade takes the dogs into the wilderness to go do hunting, while Big Mama, Dinky, and Boomer attempt to explain that his friendship with Copper will not continue, as they were born natural enemies. Now, basically, right here is that, Todd and Copper, as young kids, they're growing up to be, they want to be friends forever. But friendships don't really always continue, because when you're a kid, like, I had a childhood best friend when I was growing up, and we stayed friends for about maybe 10 or so years, and then we ended up not being friends together, which, for those who have been on my channel for a long time, should know I had a falling out with her, which I'm not going to say her name for privacy reasons. Sorry, I had to take a sip of water. But, this is a good example to say that, not all friendships always stay, the exact truth. Like the exact stay together for forever. Of course, months pass as Todd and Copper reach their adulthood, as Copper become more experienced hunting dog. Of course, when Copper returns that night, Todd sneaks in to visit him if they can still be friends, but however, Copper says that the days of their friendships are over and that he's a hunting dog. Chief then awakes and sees Todd, and of course alerts Slade, and they chase Todd along with Copper. Of course, is that Chief, catches Todd and attempts to escape on the railroad track, but of course he's struck by the incoming train and falls to the river below and breaks his leg. Well, I'm surprised he didn't die, because this is going to be very shocking for you guys in the novel, which I will be getting to soon. Enraged by this, Copper and Slade blame Todd for the accident and now want vengeance. Realizing that Todd is no longer safe with her, Will Tweed decides to leave him at a game preserve, which there'll be no hunting or anything like that. Of course, Todd, when he was alone in the woods, is like all, feeling like he doesn't belong here. But of course, a friendly porcupine offers Todd shelter. And of course, that's the night that Slade and Copper pretend to poach Todd or hunt him down. So, of course, Big Mama finds Todd and introduces him to her best friend, a female fox whose name is Vixie. Yeah, it's not Dixie. That's in the second movie. Of course, who helps Todd adapt life into the forest after their attempt at fishing. Todd gets angry and rants, and later apologizes to Vixie at Big Mama's arguing. Now, later on, Slade and Copper trespasses in the reserve to hunt Todd, as Todd manages to escape Slade's leg hold traps. Copper and Slade pursues the two foxes, and that they hide in their burrow for a while. Slade tries to trap them by setting fire there, and they even try to do it, but of course, the foxes narrowly escape through getting burnt as Slade, and Copper chases them up a hill until they reach a waterfall, when they saw a big grizzly bear and of course attacked Slade. So, of course, later on, dropping his gun, Copper attempts to fight the bear, but is no match for it. So, of course, Todd intervenes and fights the bear until they both fall in the waterfall. When the bear has died, of course, Copper approaches Todd, who lies in exhaustion near the bank of the waterfall-created lake. When Slade appears, he prepares to shoot Todd, but of course, Copper positions himself right in front of Todd to prevent Slade from killing him. Refusing to move away, realizing that Todd has saved the both of them from the bear, Slade lowers his gun and leaves with Copper. And with their friendship restored, Todd and Copper share one more last smiling before parting ways. So at home, basically, Copper and Todd remembers the first day when they met them, and after leaving the game preserve, of course, they look at their homes at the Amos asleep. So that was actually a really good movie. And I have to say, this movie was kind of sad at parts too. Like, I like the characters of it. It was like really, really, really well. So it's pretty amazing to see the release. Now, in May of 1967, shortly after before the Fox and the Hound won the Dothan Animal Book Award, of course, this was actually, so it was reported that Walt Disney Productions had obtained the film rights to the novel. In the spring of 1977, that's when the development began, after Wolfgang Riverman had the original novel and, of course, decided that it would make a good animation feature for one of his sons, since they owned a pet fox years before. So, of course, they were reported as the Fox and the Hounds, but the filmmakers dropped the plural and began to focus the story more and more on the two leads. So, Riverman's novel, basically, they have, like, Art Stevens as a co-director, and, of course, that's when the production and development started going on. By late of 1970, the 8, Frank Thomas and Ollie Alderson and Cliff Dermner, or Cliff Norberg. Of course, they decided to complete animated scenes of Todd and Copper using dial logs and stuff like that. So, of course, later on is like the early production. They started using characters like Young Todd and Copper, Big Mama, and Amos Slade have already been cast. The supporting characters they were doing more and more. That's when things started to get, really crazy at this point. Now, that was basically the movie itself that we see. Now, the characters of this is just absolutely amazing. And of course, The Fox and the Hound was released on VHS in 1994. And of course, well, we really liked it as Disney really made good movies. Of course, we're just going to say right now that The Fox and the Hound is like almost 40 years old. It's going to be 40 years old by next year. Oh my goodness. I guess maybe that's just like saying. Now in the sequel, and I'm not going to get too much into detail, but what I'm going to say right now is that it takes place during the youth of Todd and Copper before the events of later half of the first film. Of course, it involves Copper attempt to join a band of singing stray dogs, thus threatening his friendship with Todd. The film critically panned with the critics, calling it a pale animation of its procedure or something like that. So that was kind of why The Fox and the Hound 2 didn't really add, too much stuff. Now on with the novel, which I'm going to warn you right now, it is a little bit more disturbing. So if you guys can't handle it, I recommend you stop watching the video right here and then skip on to, watch my other videos. Now, basically the story of this by the novel The Fox and the Hound by Daniel P. Mannix was made in 1967, the year after my mom was born. Of course, the weird thing about this I could see is that Todd and Copper were never friends at all in this novel, which is very surprising because, I expected, this to be much dark. And anything that's put in there, Disney didn't bother to add certain stuff. Like, I'm going to explain what stuff that is in it that Disney did not have in it. And you guys can realize how dark and messed up this movie is. So, I guess we can get going. So, Copper, who is a bloodhound crossbred, was once a favorite along his master's pack of hunting dogs. So, however, he feels treated by Chief, who is a young, faster, black and tan coonhound. Of course, Copper hates Chief, of course, who is taking Copper's place as the pack leader, but during the bear hunt. Chief protects the master when the bear turns on him, and of course, Copper is too afraid to confront the bear, so that's something. Of course, Todd is a red fox, and of course, as a kid raised by a pet from one of the human hunters who killed his mother and his litter of mates. Todd eventually joins his life, but when he reaches his sexual maturity, he returns to the wild, so kind of like similar to the first one, except it's different. During his first year, he begins establishing his territory, and he basically learns his invasion techniques used from being hunted from farm dogs. One day, he comes across the master's house and discovers more about pack-chained dogs. So, of course, a chief skillfully trails his fox, and of course, that's when Todd flees on the railroad track as a train is approaching, waiting to jump to safety till last minute. Chief, unfortunately, is killed by the train. Now, Disney was originally going to kill Chief by having the train hit him, which that did happen in the movie, but he's alive. But in this one, I could understand Disney would have got a lot of backlash that they did that. So later on, basically, with Chief buried and the master crying over the dead dog, and of course trains Copper to ignore all foxes except for Todd, and over a pan of 2 animal lives. So of course, the man and the fox, they begin to hunt, so requested for revenge. Of course, Todd learns new tricks and methods how to outsmart the hunting dogs and stuff. So of course, with Todd always escaping at the end. So of course, Todd mates with an older, experienced vixen who gives birth to a litter of kits. Before they're all grown, the master finds a den and gasses them and the kits to death. While in that winter, that was when the master sets out like old traps, just like the movie. But of course, Todd carefully knows how to spring them. But of course, the vixen unfortunately gets caught and is killed in January. So Todd takes a new mate who has another litter of kits with the master still having his hunting techniques, he of course used his rabbit call to the foxes, which is the method. So of course he kills the kits by using what sounded like a fox kit, who is able to draw out kill Todd's mate. So after the years, of course, there was new buildings and highways being sprung up and stuff like that. There was unfortunately a rabies outbreak, which of course most foxes and most animals were infected. So of course, Horace, basically what happens is that Todd was not affected by any of it. So the master spends his time drinking alcohol. People try to convince him to move into nursing homes that where no dogs were allowed. But one summer, that's when the rabies spread throughout the fox population. After one infected fox attacks a group of humans and children, the same people approach the master, asks for his help in killing all the foxes. So he does that, but ironically not Todd. Of course, Todd escapes through all three events, such as attempting to coursing him with his greyhounds. So one morning after Todd's escape from one of the greyhounds, the master sends Copper on the hunt after he picks up the fox's trail, and of course Copper reluctantly pursues him throughout the day and into the next morning. Todd eventually drops dead in exhaustion, with Copper collapsed on top of him, close to death himself. So the master nurses Copper back to health, and they both enjoyed the new popularity after they killed, of course, until they killed Todd. So, of course, when his accomplishment dies down, the master is left alone once again and returns to drinking. He once again was asked to consider living into a nursing home, as he agrees. Crying, he decides to take a shotgun from the wall, leads Copper outside, pet him gently before ordering him to lie down. He covers the dog's eyes as Copper licks his hand one last time, and basically the master kills Copper. Now, it's really sad right here is that everyone pretty much dies at the end, and everyone's miserable. That's really sad. Like, I'm really surprised that Disney didn't go that far when they came up with the Fox and the Hound, and even when they were, making it. I'm surprised Disney didn't go that far into, basically killing everyone at the end. I'm surprised Disney didn't even, go as far as doing something like that. Which, of course, that is possible, but I am going to say right now is that there was no friendship between Todd and Copper in their book, but there is in the movie. So if you read the novel of it, if you haven't done so already, I highly recommend you do that. And you take a look at the movie, you will realize how much drastic changes Disney had to do so they can avoid, getting backlash from many people, because of course that's just the case when it comes to that. So of course, that's just what it is. So of course, it's really sad to say. Now, I have not read the book, but I am planning to get it at some point so then I could read it, because the story is really good, but I also like the movie. I think I prefer the Disney movie a lot better than the movie. And if you guys are wondering, is there going to be a live action movie of this? Perhaps there might be, maybe in the next few years or so, but I really don't know for full and fact yet, so that's kind of something. But I would really like to see a live action movie of The Fox and the Hound someday. That would be quite interesting to say the least. But other than that, this was actually a pretty good movie. Now, if you guys like the story that I told on the Shadows and Pretties, if you guys have seen the movie, be sure you leave me know what your thoughts are on it. If you like the book, let me know, or movie. And also, if you guys are new to my channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload, so then you guys won't miss an upload. And like always, I'm going to be seeing you guys in the next episode of Shadows and Pretties. Thank you so much for watching today's episode, and I'll be seeing you all in the next video. Peace out.